I see it.
There we are. There's that left corner. That's the
We
one.
see the left.
Yes, we are live now. So awesome. Yeah, today's gonna be amazing. One, Veena, I actually did my research with your show episode. I don't really do that. I like to be
Yeah.
surprised. But then I did look and I was like, okay, this is grand. This is big, empowering underrepresented individuals and the real estate thing. And then I'm like, oh, there's a lot of pretenders in that market. But I go to your website and I was like, ooh, I was like, the website doesn't just look nice and sharp. It it really resonates in a big way. And then in addition to the luxury nature of that, I also saw the link for Rosie Noel, I believe her name is, your coach.
Yes. Yes.
I went to her website and saw how on point she was. And then I was like, okay, like great coaches only coach great students. You don't waste your time if they're not great. You can only help people who want the help and will do the work. And so I was very impressed with the things that I saw, and then I saw your testimonial of her on there, and I was like, oh, we got a rock star on the show today.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, I mean, let's hit that first. What do you want to say? What would you want the audience to know about you now that
Yeah.
I've put you on a 20-story pedestal?
Yeah, I know. I have to learn to balance up here. I think sometimes, right, when people see the accolades and the accomplishments, it's really easy to fantasize what that means and who I am and what my life is like. And I speak at a lot of events. I spoke probably at about 200 events last year. So I am on the speaker circuit and I love speaking. And it's one of the most common pieces of feedback I get is, oh, you're so approachable in real life. And I'm like, thank you. And do I come off like a huge jerk on social media? Like, what are you saying? How do I take
Nah,
this?
you got power. You're like a lioness. I mean, you don't just walk up to a lion or a lioness. That doesn't happen. So by the way, today's big emotions day, guys. If you guys see me break down in tears multiple times, my mom had heart surgery this morning. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. And Cynthia behind the scenes who's helping, she's also sick. There's so much. And we've got good news so far. So yeah, I know. I just dropped like a huge
Oh
bomb on this.
my gosh.
And
Oh,
so
wait,
like
so is she out of surgery
it
or is she
it ish. Yeah, I know.
the end
And
of it?
here's the
Okay.
thing about my mom, right? Here's the great thing about my mom. There's nothing that she would rather have me doing than talking about helping the underrepresented individuals. Right. This honors my mom. All right. This is the opportunity. So I appreciate you showing up
Yeah,
because we had this planned a long time out, and sometimes it's hard to make sure that schedules stick
yeah,
together. But you showed up. I showed
absolutely.
up. We've got so much power to deliver and give,
Yeah,
and the speaker circuit, your dedication to that too, and the way you show up as a speaker who could feel routine. This doesn't feel routine at all. You got your stuff together. So I'm
thank
digging
you.
this.
Well, thank you for hosting me despite what's going on in your world. And hopefully, we can make today's episode a really great way to honor your mom and wish her well as she's recovering, a speedy recovery. Um, and hopefully, you will get really good news soon that you can then celebrate the next chapter of life with her.
Yes,
So,
yes. That's what I'm
manifest.
counting on. And
Yeah,
so
we'll speak it into
I will
existence.
be a little bit attentive on that too while we talk.
Yes.
And so the before we move on to the break, one of my favorite questions to start with on this is, what are 3 resources, Veena, that you've used to get to where you are, to accomplish what you've done? What are 3 books, movies, etc.?
Yeah. Okay. So books. I just read a book, and it's very rare that I read a book over and over. This is absolutely going to be a book I read multiple times a year, most likely,
Wow.
by Adam Grant, called Think Again. Phenomenal book. It is about expertise and how it can be a blessing and a curse, both, because when you have done as much as I've done in multifamily, right? I've bought and sold over $1 billion of multifamily assets in my own portfolio. I know things about multifamily at this point, right? You can get into an overconfidence cycle, which can then lead to actually worse decision making than if you just take a moment to reconsider and rethink what you thought you knew. And so I just loved that book because it was like a totally new perspective, totally new mindset, total frame shift for me. Highly recommend it. The second tool that has got me to where I am, you mentioned Rosie Noel earlier. I actually, right before this call, I was a minute late because she called me. I called her this morning. She was on vacation for like a week. And I was like, oh, she's back. The first thing I did this morning was call her. She's like not answering, right? Because she's probably catching up on other things. And then she called me back and I was like, I can't talk to you right now. I have a podcast, but I'm going to call you back at 2 p.m. because I'm like fiending for my session with her. I haven't spoken to her in over a week now. And normally I try to coach with her 5 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Every day I try to start my morning with a coaching session from her just to get me framed up and ready for the day. And the most interesting thing about that, I'll say, is when I first started coaching with her, it's almost 2 years ago, I had never hired a coach before. And I know, it's crazy. It was the
Well, it's
dumbest.
crazy that you landed such an amazing coach having never hired one before.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Keep going though,
yes.
please.
And the craziest part is this is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my entire career, is not putting the money out for self-development or education or self-improvement. I didn't realize what a big global impact it would have. And so I started coaching with her, and it has completely changed how I show up in every facet of my life. And I know a lot of people are probably like me, right? 2 years ago, I was like, okay, but Rosie hasn't ever bought any multifamily. So how can she coach me
Hmm.
and teach me to do this? Like, that makes no sense. I only want to learn from like Jeff Dishner at Starwood, right? But the reality is, if you look to like the greats, right? Michael Jordan was the GOAT and he had a coach, right? Phil Jackson was his coach. And
Yeah.
Phil Jackson was a basketball player, but he wasn't great like Michael Jordan was, but he was able to coach him. So what you're looking for in a coach is not someone who's necessarily done the things you want to do. You're
Yep.
looking for someone that can guide you to get the outcomes that you want. So she's my second secret sauce. And my third secret sauce that I'll share is, okay, this one's kind of a freebie, easy one, but I love AI. I use AI in every facet of everything I do. So if you're new to AI, start on ChatGPT. It's like the easiest, lowest hanging fruit to get used to. But spend time in there, because the more time you spend with AI, the better it gets. So the deeper you fall down the rabbit hole, the better
I'm an
outcome.
AI convert,
Yeah,
100%.
it
100%.
should be. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So
Oh
you might
no.
as well get on board.
It's the new oxygen. Like it really
Yes,
is.
absolutely.
It is changing everything. I
Everything.
don't do hardly anything without touching AI first.
Absolutely. And that should be your first thought. I
Yeah.
just trained our multi-community. We do our coaching calls every Tuesday. And this morning's call, I trained them where I was like, hey, here's how you build a custom GPT. And one thing I said to them, similar to what you're saying, is the very first thought you have about anything that you do in your business, whether it's looking at the numbers, whether it's reaching out to someone, whether it's responding to an email, it doesn't matter. Your first thought should be, which AI tool can I use to do it the best as fast as possible? And how can I replicate this process so that AI can now be used by an admin or somebody else or another AI tool to automatically create this?
Yes. Huge. There's so many, there's scales of ways to implement AI, my friends. And it is a treasure trove of tools.
Yeah.
It is like an all-encompassing toolbox that includes everything from your tiny razors to your giant chainsaws.
Yeah.
Right. It literally has everything in it right now. And it's just growing even further. So it's tough because you don't want to oversimplify that reality. I don't want to for our audience, right? But so many of them aren't using it yet or just scratching the surface. And then there's the ones who already know exactly what we're talking about. They want to dive deep. Reach out directly. Like put your direct question to us, because the key, I would say the biggest key for AI, for even the gurus out there, especially for the gurus out there, is the same thing that is true about psychology. It's, are you asking the right questions? Do you know how to ask the right questions? Do you understand the context and the tone and the cadence and the perspectives? And AI needs that from us still. It
Yep.
can't do it without us. So working with somebody like Veena, Rose, myself, others who understand how to ask the absolute best and most difficult and most important questions. Like that's really the key to be able to maximize it. So I love that you shared that. Feel free to dive in a little bit further, and then we'll cut for the break, and we'll come back and we're gonna like unload on this opportunity of empowering the underprivileged.
Yeah, so I'll piggyback on your words of caution, right? We still need the human element to properly prompt AI. The more you prompt it, the better it's going to get. And okay, here's a tip that I learned maybe a couple months ago. So I started using AI back in December 2023 when ChatGPT first launched to the public. I was like one of the first few 100,000 users, right?
That's cool. I was the opposite. I'm
Oh,
contrarian. I'm contrarian 100%. And
oh
so
no.
me and Mark Twain, we went the opposite direction. I'm so
No.
glad I did.
I
But there's different perspectives on this, right? Good for you.
I went so deep in so fast. By end of
Good.
December 2023, we were already rolling out AI across the company.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very much, early implementers, early adopters. I'm glad you're on board now, though, because the reality is AI is here to stay. It's only going to get more robust and more powerful. And if you're
And here's the big thing. The reason why I did it, and the big thing I learned it. One, I don't do fads. Two, in addition to that, the leaders who are going to rise up in AI, mark my words on this. I've talked to a lot of AI specialists who completely don't get it. When I say specialists, there's a huge difference between being the founder of ChatGPT and talking about this, and all the rinky-dink people who think they're an AI coach and think they understand it, right? So here's where I'm going though. Those who will rise up and who will actually win and stay on top of the AI are going to be the ones who right now are emphasizing ethics.
Yes.
If you don't see somebody talking about ethics all throughout their presentations, they're going to get burned bad, or they're going to be irrelevant. One of the two.
I totally agree. I think it's very
Nobody's talking about it in the general market. Nobody.
Because it's not sexy or cool.
That's right. But that's sexy and cool is broke.
Yeah.
You don't win that way.
Yeah,
you can win for a little bit, you can deceive people, but so I'll just put that out there for those of you listening in. Start to dive into the ethics aspect, the values, the virtues aspect of AI. That's what's going to help you do this long term. You abandon that and you treat it like people treat Alexa, or I can't say the other one because it's going to activate. But if I say, "Hey Alexa, turn the alarm on," stop, and I'm commanding it like a slave, you know what I'm doing? I'm teaching my children to talk to people like that.
Okay,
My
so
children
actually,
are here. Go ahead.
I have a counterpoint to this.
Please.
This is actually what
I want the counterpoints. These are good.
Yeah, I just learned it. Okay, so before I used to talk to we have Google Home, right? It's like whispering it so it doesn't hear me, right? We have Google Home and I have SIRI on my laptop and my phone. And so I used to say, "Can you please blah, blah, blah," and "thank you," when it would tell me the time, right? And I did that for that exact reason, because I have young children. I have twin 5-year-olds, they're almost 6. I have twin 5-year-olds, and I know they're listening to me. And I don't want them to think, and especially because the voices are female voices, I definitely don't want them to think that it's okay for us to speak to anybody like that, but especially not women like that, right? And so I would use please and thank you. But what I learned, and I would do it with my ChatGPT too, but what I learned is you actually have to be mean to your ChatGPT. You should not say please and thank you, because specifically ChatGPT is built on an LLM, a large language model, which means it's basically predicting what the next text should be. And when you use words like please or could you or can you do this, instead of giving it a direct command, so saying, "Can you please tell me the top 5 markets in the country for multifamily," is a softer and more polite, right, prompt than "tell me the top 5 multifamily markets in the country," right? So you actually don't want to do the former, you want to do the latter, because it is predictive LLM. And what happens is it starts thinking that it can make decisions, and it starts thinking that it can say no or not give you the information you're looking for. So
that's cute. I can appreciate. I mean, we fundamentally disagree on that, and it's okay. That's a good thing. It's like we need it, because one, it's going to learn it anyway. There's no changing the perspective of, we got billions of people who have different inputs. The value of the reality, it's we're not going to turn these things into slaves. It's not going to happen. Slavery always leads to revolution or the death of a certain population. And so it's going to happen. But the neat thing is, when ChatGPT or the AIs that I use are communicating with me, because I teach it about the values that we hold at First Class Business, which
Mhm.
are love, patience, persistence,
Yeah.
consistency, reliability. Every single time I emulate that and I speak with it, it learns even better how to refine its own messaging back to me for marketing purposes and for what I do. And there's a huge difference in being apologetic with tone or using please as a manipulative insincerity, and actually using the virtue holistically to know that I'm still in authority with what I ask for. So I would never abandon my values in training my AIs, because, and again, I've seen the byproduct out of it. ChatGPT like champions for me every day in the most pleasant, beautiful way. And I've become a much better communicator with others, even though I've only been using it that way for like 6 months. It's made a phenomenal difference.
I find that interesting because I used to do the same thing you did, and I actually have way better output now that I'm direct with it.
Well, I
And
would say though, you didn't do the same, because the exact example you gave was completely out of alignment with how I would have done that exact
previous,
phrase.
previously, I started out very very soft with it because I thought of it like a person, right? And
Mhm.
then I moved to please tell me the top 5 markets, right? So still direct, but using it because that
Mhm.
felt more comfortable than just giving something a
Mhm.
direction, right? And I guess there's maybe like more to explore here with the ethics of
Sure.
it too, right? Because what we know now is about, I think it's like $10 million is wasted from saying please and thank you to ChatGPT, and it uses an incredible amount of energy to use ChatGPT for prompts,
A
right?
lot
So
of people exploited that with Sam Alton, or the whatever the name of the founder
yeah,
is, right?
yeah,
They exploited his response on Twitter regarding that. It made global news because of it, and that was taken out of the context of his response. And so some people, there were big articles that came out on
yeah, I saw.
on crappy news sites like CNN that said something like, oh, he's complaining he's lost billions. Oh, no, he wasn't. He was stating a fact based on a private conversation, one-on-one with somebody, and he never stated that that was not a good thing to do. He was just making a literal factual basis of, yeah, there's a lot of money that is pumped into that. I would equate that to the same thing as training a team member. It's like, first, when I say hi I can come into my office and I can tell my team to go do something. But if I start my conversation with my team members by saying, hi, how are you? How's your day going? How's your family? How are things? Am I wasting output? Yes, people could argue that I'm wasting output. The Asperger's good. But when I'm actually diving into the relationship, I'm fortifying a stronger response. And I'm not looking for an instant gratification response on AI. I'm looking for a developing truth, especially regarding 5 markets. It's not just one answer. There's layers to that, right?
Absolutely. I think that fundamental difference of how we look at it, I would never speak
Yeah,
to a human like this ever because
sure, sure.
there's value in human emotion and human connection, right? I spend a lot of energy and effort coaching around the emotional intelligence
Mhm.
specifically, right? So I think emotional intelligence is actually the next frontier of what the most successful people are going to be, the ones that really understand and practice emotional intelligence, because that can't really be replaced with AI in the same way that the human connection
Real
exists.
quick pause. I want you to continue that thought. Don't lose it, please. But quick pause for all of the people out there who are like, when are they going to get to underprivileged stuff? This is it. We're derailing on purpose right now. I am. I'm like, if
Yeah.
there's one thing I can teach people that are in underdeveloped nations and in position of poverty and positions where they need to move, this is the best resource and tool that we could talk about with them, because most of them don't even have access to knowing about it yet. So now they're getting a deep dive into that exact class, and I would rather give somebody 100 fishing poles,
Yeah.
right, than one fish.
Yeah.
So continue, Veena. Thank you for letting me
Yeah,
interrupt.
absolutely. Yeah. So I think like when you're thinking about it, right? If you think of AI or ChatGPT like a person, then yeah, you should not treat it this way, right? But it is like you wouldn't type into your Google document, right? Your Word document, you're not going to type in like, please listen to me tell you about the top 5 markets when you're starting off a paper, right? It's not, you're not being mean to a person. It is to, and I do agree with you when we're talking about, leading to slavery, but I don't think about it in the same way because this is not human. This is artificial intelligence, right? So I think about it in a different way. Now, with regards to prompting and getting emotionally intelligent responses, I do prompt it on emotional intelligence. I do prompt it to put out certain outputs, right? So I load, for example, my Clifton strengths where I'm really high communication and I'm high woo, which is like winning others over. And these are the things I like coach Rosie on. And I have her give me that report so I can load it into ChatGPT and get better outputs from it.
I see ChatGPT a lot like an instrument. And
Yeah.
depending on the type of songs that I want to play, I'm absolutely going to pour my emotions into it. This is fair, and so it's not a resolvable reality because it's two very healthy perspectives.
Yeah, I
Right?
don't think either
That's the key.
perspective is right or wrong.
And so what you're saying is super valuable and important, and it's something for people to consider. As a musician, this ChatGPT is my instrument,
yeah.
and I will absolutely care for it the exact same way that I would care for my guitar, which is part of my family. And like this is a big important thing to me for what I do, and the type of and there's times where I play angrier, right, or I play more emotionally driven towards sadness, etc. So for each of you out there, my greatest insight for you and invitation is I'd invite you to meditate and or pray about it. For me, it's the exact same concept. Figure out for you what makes the most sense, sharing from the wisdom that both Veena and I have gained from diving into the tool and experiencing firsthand our wins and losses with ChatGPT, and know that it all contributes to valuing and understanding our own journeys. We're going to come back. We're going to dive in more directly on other aspects of empowering the underrepresented individuals. And for those of you as well who are interested in like, well, how can I do that most effectively? I'll drop one more hint before we dive into the break. And that's, how do I make sure that I'm creating a compound effect around me? How do I find the other leaders who are doing big things like this that also understand the value of strategic partnerships? And from what I've seen from Veena, and she's talking openly about Rosie, and what y'all know about me, we're all about finding great people and doing great things together. So also consider that if you're a leader who's also on the same type of path, rather than see it as a them versus me, look at how can we all do this together? So we'll see you guys on the other side. We'll be right back. All right, welcome in to Vision Pros Live with Jackson Calame. I'm your show host. We will be doing interviews for visionary entrepreneurs and guest leaders who are building fantastic visions out there. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Vision Pros Live. I'm your show host, Jackson Calame, founder of and CEO of First Class Business. It has been a long time since I've done a live episode. So I'm a little bit nervous, and I'm super excited because my guest centered me. She doesn't make me nervous. She's helped me feel centered, and I'm really grateful that she's also willing to argue with me in a very good way. I'm talking about debate. I'm talking about negotiation. And when I say negotiation, some of you guys think hostile or hostages. Negotiation is healthy dialogue. It's the ability to talk about different perspectives. And so her leadership skills allowed her and I to talk about some things already. We'll be diving in even deeper into that. She has done more than $1 billion in real estate transactions. She's also got other movements she's working on. I saw the multi-mastermind. I can't wait to talk about that. But our goal is to try to pour into you as much as possible and help you out. I'm going to do that also through a couple of these opportunities up here. One, I'm going to talk about Home Studio Mastery with Junaid Ahmed. Home Studio Mastery builds some of the most world-class podcast studios out there. They bring it to your home or to your office and build those out. I highly recommend seeing what Junaid's up to. Junaid became he was on our podcast a couple of times because he's also a podcaster. He's got hacks and hobbies, and he's a top 2% in the world podcaster. And he's got Home Studio Mastery. We start working with him as a client. And within a few weeks of working with him as a client, we really reinforced those opportunities. I went to the studio with him, Dr. Danio's studio. They do laser hair removal. And we were building an office for this office right here for a financial firm. And Junaid and I got so close during this opportunity and through Podfest that I asked him to be a business partner at First Class Business. So we've combined our businesses in this process as well. And I can tell you his processes, his ability to see what studios can look like virtually and then bring them to life, his ability to support people with podcasting virtually as well as systems, and his personality. I watched this man pray several times a day when we were on our tour for Podfest. I saw him get up earlier than me and go to bed later than me. And that's weird. Like nobody does that. Right. And so here he is, super diligent, helping people, family oriented. I cannot say enough about my great friend, Junaid Ahmed. He's become very much a brother to me. And if you have the opportunity to explore with him, how do you create an amazing podcast studio? I come in with my rinky-dink studio on purpose. He comes in with his Lamborghini studios, and we can work with anything in between there. So definitely check out what he's up to. Then we have Danny Brissell. Dr. Danny Brissell is also a client of ours, and he's got this amazing program called The Reading Habit. He has helped hundreds, if not thousands and tens of thousands of students learn how to become inspired to be obsessed with reading and to love it. He's got that like Jim Carrey style personality too. He also looks a bit like Danny Quaid. He's got the TV face going on. But Dr. Danny also brings the heart and soul along with that. And he loves helping people all throughout the world. The Reading Habit is actually something that is available for free right now for children. And so dive into that. It's something to help parents inspire their children to learn how to read too. He brings in a great personality and impact. But I think it's also amazing that he's bridging the gap between the parents and the children themselves as well. And of course, he's a phenomenal keynote speaker that gets to speak again all over the world and gets paid 5 figures for those speaking engagements to do it, whether it's at schools, whether it's at universities, whether it's at corporations. So definitely check out what Danny's up to. Then we have the Water Project. The Water Project, we do not have an affiliation with, but I also refuse to do a podcast without talking about it. There are millions of people in this world who don't have access to clean drinking water. And when I learned about that, it's everybody knows there's challenges, but when I dove into this project and saw the transparency with which they speak with and showcase, I was like, I got to do something to help with this. I always wanted to build a water well. Sunday school teacher back when I wasn't listening, I was 16, said, why don't we buy $10,000 or $15,000 cars and put the next $10,000 towards a water well in Africa? And I had my attitude. I didn't say anything, but immediately in my mind, the bucket list is like, oh, I'm totally doing that. And so now we do everything that we can to also make sure that we're promoting this and that we're also contributing to it. I see these kids celebrating water like my 4 kiddos celebrate Christmas Day. Like that's humbling. And now when we contribute to these borehole wells or we contribute to the sand dams and they show you exactly what they're building, they show you the project come to fruition. We're talking about making a generational impact where kids can stay in school and focus instead of going to get water and perhaps getting kidnapped. We're talking about allowing the parents to be able to stay focused on work instead of, again, going and finding a potentially risky resource for their family. You have the opportunity to help me participate in promoting that and helping others. My hope is if you're in a financial situation where you can't contribute to it, bring it up over a dinner conversation with your family. Right? Talk about it with a friend. Tell somebody about it so you can just create enough energy. You might find somebody who ends up donating $100,000 to that and funding 20 of those projects. You never really know unless you take the chance. So I'll take the chance right now and make sure to make that happen. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Veena Jetti back on stage. We're going to talk about, again, how do we empower more people? And if you want to ask in the comments too, like, how can this relate to your own growth? Don't be scared or shy to do that. I will give my secret, and that's the more I give, the more I get. It's just what happens. It's like a universal law that happens. So with that said, Veena Jetti, thank you so much for inspiring me for coming on to Vision Pros Live today.
Thank you for having me back. I have to say, we have something else in common.
What's that?
Okay, so the Water Project, we have been longtime supporters of a similar project.
Charity Water?
Water.org, actually.
Water.org. Good.
Water.
Let's roll out more names on this. Good. Okay.
Yes,
Tell me about it.
Okay, here's what I love about it. So it actually provides the financing and infrastructure to bring water to these underserved communities and villages. And the reason that it's been so close to my heart is because it's really in alignment of my goal to help women, especially. And one way of doing that is by providing clean water resources, because to your point, parents are not the ones usually that are going to find this water. What they're doing in a lot of these African villages is they're pulling the girls out of school at like 8, 9, 10 years old so they can walk 2 hours each direction to get clean water for the family. And what we know unequivocally is the more educated that young girls are, the longer they wait to get married and have babies, and the longer they wait to get married and have babies, the less likely they are to live in poverty. And so it's such a root cause of the outlook of women and young girls that like I just love supporting it. And to your point, like my kids are spoiled, they are entitled, like, for them, it's like everybody has water, despite the number of times we've talked about it. I've showed them, I've taken them to third world countries where they've gotten to see kids that don't have anything. And, they can't imagine this life because they're just in such a life of privilege. So it's really important. I love that your mission is Water Project. I'll definitely look into it because right now we've been doing water.org, but I'll definitely look at Water Project and see if we can spread resources. So thank you for sharing that. Oh, I think you're on mute.
Rookie.
Rookie mistake.
There it is. So I know I love that. And, and again, it's not my project, but it is one that definitely came across the radar.
Yep.
And it's one that we love to support. And same thing with water.org. Like now we'll see who takes off with these different opportunities and these resources. There's so many elements of truth and value that you shared about how to help the underprivileged, right? Just in that one segment that I hope those of you listening in that you're taking notes. You're seeing where can I take the action, according to what it is I'm hearing here. And if you struggle with that, come and talk to us again. Like, let us know like that you're struggling with that, and we can easily put action plans into your hands. That's not hard for people like Veena and I to do. The emotional state. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my mom's situation. I got an update. So I'm really happy about that. And to foreshadow a bit, right? My mom has AFib, right? And so she had heart surgery this morning, and you just never know what's going to happen. My brother-in-law had a heart attack and heart surgery like a week ago. Two of my sisters last year. Right. It's been happening like crazy lately. And I will say, like, I'm super blessed to have a very strong internal perspective. Right. That's what allows me to stay very grounded on what's happening. I know doorway, and it's that said, it's a doorway I'd rather my mom not go through right now, And so good news, she's out. The doctors told us that so we were worried because the AFib has to be happening during the surgery in order to be able to detect the problem and fix it. And so she went into AFib as they started. And so he was able to easily identify the areas, and he's at four different spots. Normally they find one. And so he said that is a really good sign that she should be great. She's in recovery now. I was
happy to hear that.
Yeah.
It's in a very different way. So I'm very relieved to hear that she is in recovery and doing well.
Me too. I get to have her counsel and thought by my side for many more days, years to come. And today is Mother's Day in Bolivia. So that also hit hard. Well, yes, nor would I. It's not like I memorized the world, but very special friend in Bolivia who let me know that. And it brings all the emotions, you're like, okay. But the underprivileged, being mothers, getting educated, taking our time in life. We're not saying don't have kids young and don't start your families young, and that's wrong, as much as, again, there's a certain degree of security that comes with making sure that we plan life.
Yeah, I think I should clarify. When I am talking about young, I mean like 13, 14, 15, 16. Like babies don't need to be having babies.
Right.
The longer you can push out getting married and having kids to a certain extent, right? Like you're not going to dramatically change your financial position if you wait till you're like 35 instead of 30. It's negligible. But if you're 13 versus 30, it's a very different outcome. And it's a big predictor of poverty cycles is the age of the mother when she gives birth. And that's why, like, even here in the US, we support a lot of causes that help educate young girls to abstain or to wait till longer to have babies.
Yeah, and so we're gonna hit hard and heavy on a couple of subjects because of your depth,
Yeah.
right? And it's not, these are questions that I prefer my co-hosts during pre-shows ask these questions on their, I shouldn't say pre-shows, on their first shows,
Yeah.
um, and I have to be really careful with them because I can get heavy quickly and too heavy for most visionaries. But
I'm
I'm
ready.
gonna be inviting you to my other show, the Be Your Best show. Like that one's where I hit real hard.
Okay.
This one, I want to make sure all of you visionaries are listening because you're gonna take Veena's gonna take the punches.
Yes, I will.
You guys are all gonna feel the weight of these questions, and it's your opportunity to lean in to say, I can receive this answer, right? And you have the depth, Veena. So I've no doubt you're about to smash a grand slam.
Let's do it.
So why is it that leaders often hide from funding their visions?
Fear. In one word, it's fear. It's almost always fear. And it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, the fear of what will people think. Imposter syndrome starts creeping in, right? Which is another form of fear. And it's funny because I do a lot of mindset work with my kids now. Because I want them to have tools that I didn't have growing up. And it's not because my parents weren't great and didn't want me. They've done a really great job, but I grew up, I'm an 80s baby. In the 80s and 90s, we didn't know the things we know today, right? Like back then, children should be seen and not heard because I said so, right? Like these were common parenting phrases that seem innocent, but they're not actually. They're actually like toxic a little bit. And so now I get a chance to redo it with my kids. And that's why I'm so grateful to Rosie, is because she allows me to show up as the best version of myself so that I can then pour that into my kids. And so with this, right, leaders hide because they're scared. And the number one thing I see with entrepreneurs is the fear of failure. I'm scared because what if I do it and it doesn't work? Or what if someone does this? Or what if I lose all my money? Or what if I can't pay my rent, right? And that's going into a scarcity mindset, a fixed mindset. And really, you need a growth mindset or an abundant mindset to be really successful, right? And so, what I do with my kids every day, give them 3 goals every day. And it's right in line with this. And I do this because I want to develop them into good leaders. I speak life into them every day. I speak to them as if they are doing the thing I want them to do. So I look for opportunities to say, oh my gosh, great leadership in this situation. Or, oh, wow, you are so empathetic here. I love when you're so considerate of other people's feelings. And doing it to a third person is even more powerful. So when I turn to my husband, I'm like, babe, did you just see Via used the kindest words, and she is so good about being careful in how she communicates, right? Or I say, Vivana was so hardworking. I've not read that book, but
You're describing chapter 10, and it's one of the most important chapters in
I
the
love it.
triads. 3 people. I love it. Keep going. You inherently. Oh,
So, I'll tell him like, look, Vivana worked so hard and she failed a lot of times, but then she kept going and she kept trying and then she got it. And I'm so proud of her for just trying her best. And my husband will be like, yeah, it was amazing. And we'll go back and forth while she's there and she can hear us, but we're not talking to her. We're talking about her so she can hear it. Someone said it's called the grandmother trick, where like grandmas naturally do this, where they brag to their friends about their grandchildren. So now we do that. And so the 3 goals I give them, right, to help them not fear all of this is first is learn something, because every day I want them to stay curious. I want them to learn something new. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be any one specific thing. Anything new they have to learn every day.
yeah.
The second goal every day is help someone. And I think, we covered a lot of that when we were talking about different charitable endeavors. But I think for my kids especially, they're not special. They're not smarter or better than anyone else's kids. They just won the birth lottery by being born to my husband and I. That's not an accomplishment. That's nothing for them to be proud of. They live a comfortable life. And I want them to think in abundance that we always have enough. And by helping someone, we can just compound our output, right? We can compound the change in the world. It's not scarcity where there's only enough for me or only room for me. It's not a zero sum game. So I always want them to look for an opportunity to help someone. Warren Buffett said, if you're lucky enough to be in the 1%, it's your responsibility to look out for the 99%. I absolutely agree with that. I try to instill that in my children. But the third one is the one that addresses this, which every day I ask them to fail at something. I make it a goal of theirs to fail at something every day.
Love that.
It can be anything. And when they fail at something and they come and they tell me about it, I celebrate it like they just told me that they walked on the moon, and it doesn't matter what it is. So they'll come and they'll say, Mommy, I tried really hard to write out the song lyrics to You're a Grand Old Flag. It's their latest obsession. And I made a mistake and I had to cross out the word and it looked really ugly. And I'm really upset about it and I'm disappointed about it. And I go, hey, I would be disappointed too if I was trying and concentrating on something and it didn't go the way I planned. So I understand that. But did I just hear you say you failed at something today? And she'll go, oh, yeah, that's my goal. I failed at something. And I'm like, I am so proud of you. Only people that work really hard and try are the ones that make mistakes. So you made a mistake. Good job. And I'll give her a high five and I'll celebrate and we'll do a dance party. And we really celebrate failure because I don't want them to be scared of trying. If I can remove that fear of failure, I know that they're going to try many things that they're probably going to fail at, but they're going to develop the emotional resilience to overcome it and continue moving forward and continue pivoting and iterating until they find the thing that will be successful for them. Because no entrepreneur that's ever been successful has ever done it without failing along the way. It is a stepping stone to success. I feel that very firmly and strongly. And so I want them to get used to stepping on that stone and what it feels like to be uncomfortable when you're failing. You're gonna fail, and that's okay. That's the goal now.
Huge. And as Stephen Bartlett, he just did a launch on Sunday. He just did a brand new launch, biggest thing he's ever done, came out. So those of you who are Stephen Bartlett fans, go check out Stand Store and what he's doing with them. And he talks about it a lot, how the first step towards diving in to finding your vision and moving forward is being willing and able to eat the embarrassment that comes with launch, and being able to marry yourself. And you're talking about all these amazing principles that align with his concepts and with other concepts I've read and all sorts of psychology. It's not the gifted and the talented, right?
No.
It's not that. In fact, if we honor that, it actually weakens individuals versus if we talk about the value of the hard work and the determination and effort. And I love that you incorporate the failures into that in such a beautiful way. That is such a really, really awesome resource to be able to use. We can all use that with our children and with ourselves too. How does that apply to self-love? It's there too, right? So you brought up a quote, and I want to go back to it because again, we're revealing things that don't get talked about. Right? These are truths. It's like, well, wait, this is kind of like common sense, but it's not. It's the intangibles that oftentimes people never get to hear in life. But you brought up a point that is coming out in one of my books that's going to be coming out in the near future called The Third Parent. I've never revealed this publicly. I revealed this to a few people, but I have never, ever revealed this. And I've been, it's been on the docket for quite some time. But you talked about how it's a little bit toxic with children to say, because I said so. And I love that, as you said that, my heart and mind were meditating as you were going through this. And I'm going like, okay, wait a second. She's right. And when I said you're right from a past standpoint, but that's what the third parent is all about, is the world has changed. And so I thought, are there parallels? There are other parallels of this concept. And I said, oh, if I had deprived somebody of the internet in the early 90s, big deal. It didn't matter. You weren't going to miss out on anything. But if I deprived somebody of the internet today, right, for a 6-week period, and they were a remote worker and they didn't have other job opportunities, like that could kill them. That could literally ruin their life forever. And so the new modern version of, if I did that to somebody, now it's not just a little toxic. Now this is as absolutely toxic as it gets. I could not do much more to hurt people. So to your point on this, because I said so, the whole concept and origin of the third parent was the reality that I saw my niece arguing with her mom,
Mhm.
and they were arguing over LGBTQT stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave that right where it's at. But the
Yeah.
arguments that she made and her mom not listening because I said so, you'll get it someday, you just don't understand. And I could hear my niece saying, Mom, you're stupid, you don't understand this. Like she kept coming up with new arguments. And I walked away from that night thinking about like, where have I heard these arguments? I've heard them before.
Yeah.
And then it dawned on me, she's reading the internet trolls. Right. She's got
Oh,
all access to all these young kids that are trying to pretend they're adults and have adult conversations about adult content online. And when I was a kid, I didn't have access to a resource like that. I
yeah.
didn't get to challenge my mom's thought process. So
Yeah.
there was actually a safe haven through white lies. Right. It was like, well, why did dad and you split up? You know, like she could say things that
And be
nowadays,
yeah.
if a less caring mother than mine tells their child, Daddy just has a new friend, right?
Mhm.
Even if she didn't mean to do something extremely horrid and toxic, what just happened is that child is now going to go to Google and find out what, and ChatGPT and beyond. But right now it's been Google. That's the third parent is
Right.
Google. It's typing, what does mommy mean
Yeah.
when she says daddy has a new friend? And
Yeah.
now she's going to get, or he's going to get inundated, this child, by all these perspectives that are not generated or geared towards educating a child. And because the parent has shot down the ability to have a cohesive conversation in a
Yeah.
safe environment where we can talk through what do these things actually mean, the child then loses all perspective of value of the parent. They cannot trust the parent because it looks like the parent is the idiot because the entire world is against the parent. Isn't that just
I agree with this. It's something I'm very mindful of as I'm raising my own kids is not anytime they ask a question, I always give them an answer because I want them to get used to coming to me with things they're not sure about, things that, because I mean, also too, right, as they're getting older, we're, getting closer to the birds and the bees discussion, right?
Mhm.
They're
How old are your kiddos?
they're five. I have
Okay,
5-year-old.
you're the two 5-year-old twins. Okay. Yeah, I
They're
got
all
13, 11, 9, and 4. So
okay.
I
Yeah,
got
so you're well into this phase of life, I'm sure.
I'm glad
Uh,
you said that at the age you said it because most people wait. And it's like, no, no, no. Like
no,
that
it's
stuff
like
comes up sooner.
so
Mhm.
we started talking about consent from
I'm
day
going to pause you real quick, Veena, just real quick, just to make sure the
one.
audience again remembers all of this goes
Yeah,
back. I've left this question here on purpose. Why do
yeah,
leaders hide from funding their visions? And we've started to talk about resolving the how do leaders lean into funding their visions as well. We haven't hit that directly, and we're going to run out of time, but this still, it all relates. We're talking about making sure that you have the psychological well-being within yourself and within your family. So the person this really means a lot to is the mother entrepreneur, the father entrepreneur, the one who cares that at home things are able to be stabilized and go really well too. And if you don't have that, you can't fund your vision. You can't feel connected
no.
to it. So please continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, so many of us, if you ask, like, what's your why? Everyone's going to say some version of family, right? For like 90% of people plus are
Sure.
going to say some version of family. But if you aren't treating yourself correctly, right, and you're not working on your own mindset, then it is risky to fund your own vision and you shouldn't do it. But if you are building your own mindset and you're growing, then you should be funding. You should take risks on yourself because that's the best risk you're going to take is the one that you take on yourself. So
And
I
you
say,
don't have to do it alone, right? I'm gonna just
no,
add in because you're not willing to self promote on this, and I appreciate the humility on that, right? But I would say and do it with a tribe, right? Do it with the people like Rosie, like Veena, like myself. Like, don't feel like you have to do that alone.
you should not do it alone.
Thank you.
Like there is no entrepreneur that has been successful that has not made money with someone else. Even
Correct.
I heard this from someone once. Even if you were to pick up $1 off the street, you did not make that money alone. Someone had to drop that dollar for you to pick it up. So all money is made in
Right.
partnership. It's how much you
Mhm.
honor and are intentional about the partnerships that matters.
100%, because that cultivates the tree, right? That makes it that helps it reproduce and replicate the results, compound effect style. So I love that. I'm grateful that you dove right into that. Um, do we want to move on to the next question, or
Sure.
let's do it. Let's just hit right on the vibe. If you guys have questions about what we didn't close loops on, just ask. Now, how do leaders then lean into funding their vision? They've got the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, fear of
Yeah.
success we didn't talk about. We can ask ChatGPT to fill in any fear gaps that we might have missed as well.
Yes.
Right. So how do we lean into funding the vision? Because you've done it. And I would love to hear your example of what all have you done to fund yours.
First, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because the funding piece, regardless of how you do it, is going to be uncomfortable in one way or another. It just is. It's normal. Put yourself around people that are doing the things that you want to do, because when you normalize some of these things, it doesn't feel as isolating or as scary. So, if you have a challenge in your business and you can go and say, like, hey, I'm going through whatever it is, the messy middle, right? Then we can come and say, hey, me too. This is totally normal. I went through that when I was under $1 million in revenue also. You get through it. Here's the best practices for how we've gotten through it. And so you absolutely should surround yourself with people that are doing what you want to do. But as far as funding goes, there's a couple different options, right? Either you're going to bootstrap, which is how I started most of the companies that I own today.
Likewise.
Bootstrap. Yeah, bootstrap, meaning I put my own money into it, and I try to run as lean as possible, which is more possible today than it's ever been before because of AI,
Yes.
right? You don't need these big, elaborate teams to do anything anymore. And then second, you can raise capital from outside sources. I've raised a little over $400 million to buy the $1 billion of real estate that I've bought and sold. We've raised a little over 400 million, and that's from everyday investors. You can go to institutional funds. You can get lines of credit from banks. There's SBA loans. There's grants. There's endless ways to fund things. When they say, like, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Because when you need the funding, you can figure out different sources, but you have to talk about it, and you have to talk about it to the right people, right? There's that saying that is like, the fastest way to kill a big dream is tell it to a small-minded person. It's because they find a problem for every solution. You have to find visionaries and entrepreneurs that see the vision of what you're trying to do and help you get there, not shoot you down before you're even out of the stable.
Huge, huge. You just crushed so many important points about this. And in fact, I'm gonna leave it up there because to double down, I can hear in your confidence the amount of research and work that you did to make sure you understood those different paths, right?
Yeah.
And you're not unfamiliar with crowdfunding, right? You're not unfamiliar with the ability to have accredited investors versus non-accredited investors and angel investors. And the less common one that I hear that I never hear talked about is the promissory notes. Right? There's so many different ways that we can attract funding and dive into funding. And what's really cool to me is when I was trying to study immigration law, because my ex-wife and I, she had gotten trapped in the United States with me because of COVID,
Mm.
illegal immigrant. And oh my gosh, we had already studied a ton just finding like websites, and I spent endless hours. And today I put the same type of experiences into ChatGPT, and in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I've got way better plans than took me 6 months to research and figure out, and way more certainty around what I'm doing. Like, the world has changed in a matter of 5 years, and really in a matter of months. But you have these tools available to you. And so take this knowledge that Veena is talking about, that I'm talking about, we're scratching it open for you just to give you the word, and just start exploring it with ChatGPT or with other AIs, because we don't need more excuses in the world. We need more results. We need to dive into what's going to drive the results. And I want to see that for each of you. So even though Stephen Bartlett does like to talk about how the new program he has creates self-made individuals, is driven for somebody who's self-made, he is a heart-centric enough leader where I'll give him a pass on that concept,
Yeah.
and say that what he's trying to get at is you don't need all the things like you used to, like Veena was talking about. And I would say, the office space you had to have to run a business back in the day, like that expense was eliminated 10 years, well, what I've been working from for 15 years. But all these barriers have come down, and it is such an amazing opportunity for all of you to make sure that you're building your visions out and doing so as well as you possibly can. So we are out of time for the day. I want
so
to,
fast.
I got it. What was that?
I said it went by so fast. I could have talked
It
for another
was so
hour.
good. And so I would love to have you come back on the Be Your Best show.
Yes, I would love to.
That's designed as a 90-minute to 3-hour like session where we can just unload. We have the ability to dive as deep as possible. We'll go whole like Diary of a CEO route again. Steven, you're way too on my mind right now. A lot of bromance going on there. But with that said, I'm going to honor you with one more question. Unfortunately, we need the clarity and brevity version.
Okay, give me.
I got to make sure to try to get it out of you.
Yes.
What's the most, if this was the last chance you had to speak ever, what's the most powerful lesson that other visionaries can learn from your experience?
Okay, I have it. It's a proverb that I look back to a lot. Even now, I look back to it a lot. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. And what that means is exactly what it's saying. It's always better to do things earlier and start earlier. But future you 20 years from now can thank today you for taking that action. Even if you didn't do it 20 years ago, you can do it now. So if you didn't take action up until now because you didn't know, that's not your fault. But now when you know, you're making a choice, and that's a choice that you have to make intentionally one way or the other. It's going to be uncomfortable to grow. It's going to be uncomfortable to stay the same. Time is going to continue to pass regardless of what you choose. So make the choice that your future self is going to look back and thank you for.
Thank you for resurrecting and purifying that proverb for me. Yes. That proverb, right, is one that is so exploited in the real estate industry and in the sales industries that it can be easy to associate it with the filth with which people exploit. But to your great point, we need inspiration as human beings in order to take action, right? In order to get out of self-pity mode, or to get out of a circumstance that is holding us back, in order to make the hard decisions. And oftentimes what is holding us back is the worry of how big the tree would have been. But you're right. It's not, we don't worry about the spilled milk. You milk the cow again. You plant the seed today. And so I'm grateful for that, because it doesn't matter how much I dive into vision and how present I am with building a vision, it's still easy to get weighed down by the weight of the world and forget to plant your seed. And so we've got to do that. I really appreciate it. Those of you listening in, again, Veena Jetti, you're going to be able to find her at vivefunds.com. Also, we'll have all the information in the show notes, the resources that we covered today, ways to connect with her. Of course, you can find her through Google or ChatGPT. Either one of those, and do more research and to how to work with her. I haven't done that before, but I'm going to now. I actually did that for Sadia the other night, the psychologist. I was like, I need to know more about this person. So I keep going on tangents. But Veena, this is absolutely amazing. I'm super glad to hear you live close in the Texas region as well, because as I make my different travels, I'm like, okay, I got to find out what's going on and how we can pull things together to help the 8 billion. We got 8 billion people in this world to impact and help. And all of us, by joining forces and doing that, it puts us in a position to be able to make even greater impact. So Vision Pros, thank you for supporting us well and for being here. And we look forward to seeing you guys on the next episode. Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your